You left them, so why don't you feel free? Why does your body still tense up when something reminds you of them? Why is your mind still replaying things? Why are you still trying to figure out whether they meant it, whether they knew, or whether any of it was real? You ended the relationship, but something inside you is still living there. And I want you to know that's normal. It's not weakness. It's not obsession. It doesn't mean that you're broken. That is what happens when you leave, but your clarity is still organized around the person who confused you. And that is the missing piece most people never talk about. Most people think once I leave, I'll finally feel clear. Once I block them, once I understand it was toxic, once I stop checking. But the relationship ends on the outside before clarity gets rebuilt on the inside. So now you're not with them, but your mind is still circling. It's still asking, what was real? Was I the problem? Did I overreact? Could I have done something differently? It's still looking for the one piece that would finally make everything settle. But here's what I want you to understand today. You're not still stuck because you secretly want to go back. You're stuck because your clarity is still anchored to them. And as long as that's true, your mind is going to keep going back there looking for the resolution. But the way out is not one more answer about them. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly why. And there's a specific reason, a specific order to why the loop stays open. Stay with me because by the end, this is going to click in a way that nothing else has. Number 1, you're trying to get free by understanding them. The first reason you're still stuck is because part of you believes if I can just understand them enough, I'll finally feel free. I'll finally be able to move on. And that makes complete sense. When someone gives you warmth and then coldness, closeness and then distance, apologies and then the same behavior again and again, your system tries to sort through the contradictions. So you ask, did they know what they were doing? Did they ever actually care? Was any of this real? Were they a narcissist? Were they avoidant? Were they traumatized? And when you finally find a label, maybe it's gaslighting, breadcrumbing, Darvo, narcissism, grooming, it finally feels like relief. Finally, a name for it. But here's where the trap is. The label names what happened, but it doesn't rebuild your clarity inside of yourself. So the relief lasts a day, a week, and then the loop comes back with new questions. Okay, but did they know? Were they doing it on purpose? Is the new person getting a better version of them? Now you're not free, you're just more educated inside of the same loop. Because the loop doesn't close when you finally understand them. It closes when you no longer need to understand them in order to trust yourself. And that is a completely different kind of work. That's not something you can think your way to. You need somewhere inside of yourself to return to. Because without that, your mind has nothing to anchor to except for them, their story, their motives, their version of events. And that is exactly why leaving doesn't always feel like freedom. But there's another layer to this. Because you may not only be trying to understand who they were, you may also be trying to undo who they made you think you were. Number 2. You're still carrying their version of you. After a confusing relationship, you're not only asking who are they, you're asking who was I in that? Was I too much, too sensitive, too needy? Did I ask for too much? Did I ruin it? Because a confusing relationship doesn't only distort your view of them, it distorts your view of yourself. Maybe every time you named something that hurt you, the conversation somehow became about your tone, your reaction, your issues. You went in trying to say, this hurt me, and then you left wondering if you caused the whole problem. So even after leaving, the loop isn't only asking what happened, it's asking, was I the problem? And that keeps the loop open because now you're trying to find yourself through the words of someone who benefited from your self-doubt. If someone minimized your feelings, their version of you is not the truth. If someone called you too sensitive every time you sense something very real, their version of you is not clarity. If someone made your needs feel like the problem so they didn't have to look at their own behavior, their version of you is not reality. But here's what happens. They say that you're too much, and suddenly you're trying to prove that you're not too much. They say that you're dramatic, and you start packaging everything more perfectly. They say that you're impossible to please, and you lower the bar just to prove that you're being reasonable. And even after you leave, that version of you can still live inside your nervous system, inside of your body, in the guilt, in the way you needed 10 pieces of evidence before you trust what you felt, in the way that you still wonder if your needs were too much. That's why the loop doesn't close when someone just tells you they were wrong about you. You can know it intellectually in your head, but your nervous system is still carrying their version as if it's true. And that is a completely different kind of work. That's not solved by one more label. It's not solved by telling you just have to know your worth or have more self-love. The deeper question is, how do I rebuild a relationship with myself after being trained to doubt myself? How do I trust what my body knew all along before my mind even had all this proof? That is the work. And most people are trying to skip it. Not because they're lazy, but because no one has told them that there was a process and a correct order to it. And this is exactly why I created the Relationship Clarity Program. Because once you understand that your clarity is still organized around them, the real question becomes, how do I actually rebuild it around myself in a way that holds? Not just when you're watching a video, not just when you're angry enough to feel clear, but when guilt comes back, when grief comes back, when they text, when you see a picture of them, when your body misses them, when your mind says, maybe I was wrong. That is where clarity has to hold. And that is just not one journal prompt. It's not one label. It's not one video. It's not one mindset shift. That is a process with a very specific order. Inside the Relationship Clarity Program, I walk you through that process step by step. We apply it to your actual patterns, your actual guilt, your actual confusion, and your real decisions. So the clarity doesn't just make sense in your head, it becomes steady inside of you. The link is in the description. But stay with me because there's one final piece that puts this all together. Number 3, the missing piece is your internal baseline. The missing piece is not one more answer about them. It's your internal baseline. Your internal baseline is the place inside you that knows this is what I felt. This is what I value. This is what safety feels like. This is what I'm no longer willing to accept. When that baseline is unshakably strong, other people's versions of reality don't take you over. Their explanation doesn't become the only explanation. Their opinion doesn't become the one that you keep trying to disprove. Their apology doesn't become the thing that you stay up decoding. But when your internal baseline has been worn down, everything feels harder to read. You may know something hurt and still need proof. You may know something felt wrong and still wonder if you're being unfair. You may know you were shrinking and still make excuses for why they couldn't show up. That's why just trust yourself does not work. Self-trust doesn't come from forcing yourself to feel confident. Self-trust grows when the pieces underneath it are rebuilt in the right order. Your emotions, your values, your ability to see patterns, your ability to make decisions, and your ability to stay connected to yourself when someone else's reaction gets loud. And that is exactly the part most people are skipping. They're trying to just jump straight to self-trust without rebuilding the clarity that self-trust stands on. So the real test is not whether you understand this video. The real test is what happens when the loop comes back, when you miss them, when you remember the good times, when you start wondering if you were too harsh, when your mind keeps looking for one more answer about them. That is the moment your internal baseline either holds or you get pulled back into the same orbit. And that is why this work has to go deeper than insight alone. If you are still mentally living inside the relationship after you've already left, I don't want you to hear this as one more reason to be hard on yourself. You are not stuck because something is wrong with you. You're stuck because your clarity is still organized around the person who confused you, and your system is asking for something deeper than another explanation of them. It is asking for a way back to you. And that is exactly what we do inside of the Relationship Clarity Program. We move through 5 stages in a very specific order because the order is what makes it hold. The first stage is emotional clarity, so your feelings stop feeling like problems and start becoming information. Then self-clarity, so you can remember who you are and what your baseline is and make that unshakable. And then there's relational clarity. So you can finally see them, the relationship, see the pattern clearly instead of analyzing 100 separate moments. Then decision clarity. So you can make grounded choices without getting swallowed by guilt or pressure. And then finally, self trust clarity. So what you know doesn't collapse the next time doubt comes back. And then we wrap it all up with integration. So this becomes something you can actually live in real conversations, real conflict, real grief, and real relationships. This is a 6-month guided coaching program, private calls as well as weekly group coaching calls with me, a private community, real support when the wobble comes back. Because you don't need more information that leaves you alone with the loop. You need clarity that becomes embodied enough to hold. If you're tired of understanding so much and still not feeling free, if you're tired of trying to piece this all together alone, the Relationship Clarity Program is where we do this work together. The link is in the description. You're not still mentally in the relationship because you failed to fully leave. You may still be mentally in it because your clarity is still organized around them. The way out is to not keep solving them. The way out is to rebuild clarity around you. What you felt, what you knew, what you value, and what your body was trying to tell you. What kind of love actually matches who you are. You don't need to understand them perfectly to trust yourself. You don't need them to take accountability or admit it for your experience to be so real. You don't need to become hard or cold to become clear. Your softness was never the problem. Your care was never the problem. Your sensitivity was never the problem. Those are the parts of you that are worth protecting. The loop starts closing when you stop trying to find reality inside the person who confused you, and you start rebuilding reality inside yourself. That is how you come back. That is how clarity holds. That is how you stop living inside the relationship after you've already left. Not by finally solving them, by finally coming home to you.